Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Relating to DevSecOps, where we explore the development, security, and operational issues of today so that we can solve real-world problems with the people and AIs that face them. I'm your host, Ken Toller, and here's my co-host, Mike McCabe. Mike, what up?
How is it going? I'm ready for the AI to take over. You know the movie Holes, that classic quote, "I'm tired of this, Grandpa." That's how I feel these days.
Yeah, I've never actually seen it, but I know the meme.
Yeah, it's more popular than the movie, so.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we're going to talk about more AI today. I mean, things have changed significantly, or at least you can perceive that they've changed significantly, and there's a lot going in the world in the world around AI and all of this stuff. And we have some hot takes, some burning takes, and we definitely want to talk about Mythos or Mythos. How do you say it, Mike? Is this like a CISO, CISO, SIM situation?
Well, I mean, anyone who says CISO probably shouldn't be in the industry, but yeah. I think Mythos is good.
Cool. So we'll stay with Mythos throughout just to keep it consistent. So, if you haven't heard, Anthropic released a preview of this frontier model called Mythos on April 7th. And since then, people have been freaking out about Mythos and what it's been able to do. And security people are, super pro or like super pessimistic is not the right word. They're like, I don't know. They're like,
cynical?
This is not, what's that?
Cynical.
Yeah. They're very cynical about it. And so we have varying takes as well. But Mike, you wanted to talk about this because of some of the things you've been seeing with your customers and clients and just general conversations about this over the last few weeks. What's your take and what have you been thinking about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, like, it's a preview, so we don't know all the data about how good it is, how maybe not as good as they're saying it is. We don't know. There's been a lot of debunking. There's been a lot of digging into the white paper they released and the other things that have been released. Firefox just sent out a blog that said 150 patches went into this most recent release from Mythos. I'll just throw it out there.
Oh man.
And yeah, it's been everywhere. And it's so, I'm joking about being tired, but it is so tiring that every time there's one of these releases, it seems like everyone in InfoSec lost their cynicism. And I think that was, for a while, it worked against us, but it also was a superpower so that we stayed kind of grounded. And everyone in InfoSec and everyone kind of adjacent to it is this changes everything. InfoSec is dead. We don't need people anymore. Mythos is so good. We're done. And it's tiring because I think if you talk to any CISO, for the most part, they will say that vulnerabilities, knowing more vulnerabilities is not their issue. They all have a backlog of thousands, if not a million vulnerabilities just sitting there that need to get fixed. That's not their issue. So maybe Mythos is really good at finding vulnerabilities, exploiting vulnerabilities. Who's to say? That might be true. But everyone freaked out that the only thing that InfoSec does is find vulnerabilities, and now we have a model to do that for us. InfoSec is dead. But the thing that bothers me the most, and my hot-ish take about all this is, you look at the recent supply chain attacks. There was Trivy, there was Light LLM, there was Axios, there was another Bitwarden one that just came out this week. None of those things were 0 days. None of those were remote code execution over the internet from some person using Mythos. It was, for Trivy, it was a bad GitHub action configuration that took a user provided info from an issue and then ran a shell script with it. And from that, the fallout has been massive because that's such a big, widely used package. And yeah, I mean, that GitHub action issues, every static scanner flags that for any GitHub actions. It's a well-known thing, and it wasn't fixed. And I'm not trying to criticize that company who, manages Trivy, but it was not fixed. They didn't rotate credentials. They got hacked twice. It did not require a 0 day. So I guess to summarize where I'm at, it's like InfoSec had a vulnerability problem before ChatGPT came out, before Mythos came out. We weren't patching fast enough. We weren't doing the basics fast enough. Maybe things are worse with LLMs. Maybe exploit dev is going to be even faster than it was before, and more 0 days are going to pop up, and that's going to be a nightmare for everyone. Maybe. We'll see. But that doesn't matter to attackers today. They don't need 0 days to attack you. They're not probably going to use a 0 day on you unless you're a nation state target that's the only way they're going to get in. So I just think the shift in focus again, and every single time a model comes out and InfoSec is solved, quote unquote, according to LinkedIn, it's just like missing the mark of like, I do think things are going to get worse, and we can talk about that in a second, but I don't think it's because Mythos is going to find every 0 day that's out there, and we're going to have 0 days dropping on us every single week. We already have a mess on our hands as it is. So that's my hot take. I'll let you give your view on this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I partially agree with that. I do think that there is like some overhype on the vulnerability discovery side of thing. Of course, it's finding these things, and I do agree with you there that we don't want to like focus too much on that. But I also think that's part of, and we talked about this a little bit beforehand, is that the marketing engine is really focusing in on that. And so I find, so the one hole that I want to sort of poke in on that is that some of these bugs that are being found, the like showcase bugs, the freebie OpenBSD, FreeBSD thing, took like 20 grand to find the one bug. And so, and that's a stat that they say. So I just don't know that people are spending that amount of money on the effort of finding bugs. Like, you know, every software developer is going to be doing this to find these sort of secluded 0 days. So I think from like a research perspective, the fact that Anthropic is doing this is beneficial, and we should be closing these bugs, and that's great. But the idea that this thing is going to be released is going to find like a million 0 days and that we're all doomed is like a very extreme stance for me. The more interesting stuff about Mythos to me is the ease of exploitation and attack path traversal that it is talking about in those articles, which is that it's not just finding issues, that it's chaining multiple vulns together, or that you give it the explanation of a CVE and it's able to generate an exploit, you know, whatever it was, 180 times or 150 times more successfully than 4.6 or Opus 4.6. So the model is getting better at developing exploits against vulnerabilities that do exist, and also being able to chain these things together. So I think that there is something to consider there. But to your point, the defenses to those chained attacks, exploits, the remediations don't change, right? The task that we have ahead of us is still patching, remediation, and work along that route. And so I think that folks aren't really thinking enough about the defensive side or usage of these models and how we apply those, because we can very clearly see the attack side, regardless of the scale of it. It's still happening. Like, it has become easier to exploit issues or to figure out what to do next as a pen tester or a app tester because of these models, even with rudimentary ones, to get you on the right track and to make you better. I don't know if anybody's debating that. Do you? Like, it's making it easier to do things. Mm-hmm. So I think as models make it easier and easier to do things, the speed gets much faster. And I think that's your kind of the next thing that we wanted to talk about. So, I mean, I just want to, like, the thing that people are focusing on, I think is wrong. Like, the fact that we're going to get all these 0 days, that is the headline and the thing that folks are most worried about. And I think to your point, it's like, okay, those things are going to happen. The what are we going to do about it part is what we should be focusing on. And we are going to have similar tools at our disposal for the what are we going to do about it. And we also know that we are really bad at doing this ourselves in over the last 20 years or so. So how do we leverage these things to help us do that faster?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with all that. And um, CSA, Cloud Security Alliance, they did this whole like emergency CISO get together mythos alert advice doc, and it was a like pretty big document about like what you should do now that we live in a post mythos world. And I think they're all coming from a good place, but like one of the things in the FAQ was, what should you do next? And it's like, improve your patching process, harden your environment, and reduce your public attack exposure. It's like, awesome. What is different between pre-Mythos and post-Mythos about that advice? Like not a single thing has changed. And again, I always go back to like, I think there's two different worlds. There's people who've been through breaches, who do incident response, who see how people get hacked in the real world, and there's people who do a lot of defensive work. And I feel like the two need to talk more, and people need to do both sides, because again, like the exciting headlines are 0 days, are nation states, but SMBs, even large enterprises, getting hacked all day, every day by stupid stuff. And Mythos doesn't change that from the exploit development side. I agree completely about the better the models get at attack chains and executing things and self-improvement and all the harnesses that we have now. We were just talking about OpenClaw before we started recording. Like that is what worries me more than how good the models get at exploit dev and 0 days raining down on us. Like,
yeah,
that is the piece that worries me much more. And again, going back to the tribute thing, that was someone using OpenClaw saying, exploit this GitHub action, grab credentials, and think about every attacker having 50 OpenClaw instances, just targeting whatever company, whatever industry, just all day, every day attacking people. Like that scares me way more than 0 days popping out of the woodwork.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know that it necessarily, like the automated attacks necessarily scare me as much, because it's a volume question. And I mean, I get what you're saying. Like that is a worry of mine. I'm not saying that like ignore that, but it's not what's more frustrating to me. What's most frustrating to me is that, to your point, we have everybody building fun stuff with AI and like using OpenClaw and using Claude Code to build new features, and they're like, oh, this is so great, it makes my engineers so much better. It's like, how many people have taken the time to add the security constraint into those builds, or to use this as a way to make their code better as opposed to faster, or to clean up all the patches that you've been like pushing down the road for 30 years, like, why is it that as we are working with these new capabilities, the thing is, let's do more bad stuff faster? It's like you have all of these legacy, and you have all of this cruft and these patches and things that need to be updated. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone into organizations and it's like, yeah, we're AI first now, and we're doing all these stuff, and we've added AI features to our product, and we have new AI development, and we've bought 30 different AI tools, and they record our conversations and tell us how to do stuff better, and but none of it is we just send it to go patch all of our stuff and figure out how to patch the Python 2 version that we've been on for 10 years. And that's what worries me. It's like, okay, on one hand, the security apparatus of the world is going, this stuff is scary, but at the same time is not using those tools to make things better on the defense side. And that's the frustrating part for me, because all the OpenClaw stuff and all the automatic attacks and trying to social engineer people and getting better at phishing, yeah, that's happening. But I just worry that we're just not using it for stuff that we could very obviously use it for.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, like, go back to pre-LLMs, pre-ChatGPT. Why do we not get stuff done that security raises up? Well, businesses make decisions about what they want to put their resources into. And if something's not a pressing security issue that is going to get them hacked today, they're going to kick the can down the road. And these days, I agree, like you can fix things so much faster. You can harden your application and make, all the enterprise features from a security perspective, you could implement that relatively easy because the cost of building is so low. But people aren't spending time to do that. They're adding, I don't really, to be honest with you, people are talking about how much code they're creating. I don't really see anything that different out in the world. Like, yeah, there's some really cool things being built in the AI space, but like the software I interact with, I don't feel like is changing a huge amount yet so far. Like Facebook has gone hard on AI, but Facebook still looks like Facebook. Instagram still.
Well, that's because it's just around all the back end stuff they're doing with the information, right?
Yeah, their advertisements are probably getting better, but that's an aside. So no, I agree with you. Like people, security should be taking this and running with it to try to improve security across the board. I mean, maybe the whole Mythos like hype train is actually a great opportunity to be like, look, guys, calamity is coming down the tracks. We got to fix all this stuff now. You never want to use FUD to get stuff done. But if people never listen, and there is some truth to it, Mythos or otherwise, you might as well use what you can to get some stuff done now and harden your environment, harden your applications, everything across the board, because it's never been cheaper. It's never been more approachable too.
Yeah. I will say I have, thinking about this now, I do have one anecdote from a customer that was basically, one nice thing I saw, I guess I can say, is that a team used AI to analyze and prioritize their QA coverage. And I think that helps a lot. And that's like the opposite of what I was saying, that nobody does this. So I do have, and so now I'm like thinking about it and I'm like, maybe some folks are thinking about this the right way. But what that helps with, and the thing that came out of that for the security team in that case, was if we can get the code coverage for these large projects up to 90%, 95%, 100%, it makes it so that the security team, without having the internal knowledge of that team, more capable of introducing fixes on behalf of the team. So if all of these support teams leverage AI to assist with some of these types of cruft stuff, I think that it enables security teams to be more effective. Because one of the fears of security teams is if I do this PR and write it, I don't have all the context of what these folks have been working on for the past month and a half, 2 months, so maybe I'm screwing everything up. And that's a fear that folks need to get over. But now you can have these tests that are running, deterministic tests, not AI tests. You can have those tests run and be reasonably confident that your fix is working. And you can now have, developer-centric security engineers in the same way that you in the same way that you now have, the CFO can be a developer with AI. So I think that there are pros and cons of adopting this. You can still take technical people that are not comfortable doing one class of technical things and enable them because you work on the maintenance. And so I think that that's kind of powerful, because that means that your engineering team, the problem with security teams is that we've always been the people that give development teams work. And now there's an opportunity for us to just remediate it. And I think that's a healthy direction that we can move in because of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, I agree. Security teams didn't touch code a lot of times because they were too afraid of breaking something and being blamed. So, and it is hard if you're not working day in and day out in an environment to just go in, change code, and not fear that something's going to break. But yeah, I mean, I think about it, the places that have the best security that I've worked are places that aren't the most paranoid or the most security driven, but they're just really well engineered place. And the word that always comes back to my mind is rigor. They had a lot of rigor about how they did things, not just from a security perspective, but everything, like architecture, integrations, authentication, like everything had a plan, had architectures, had validation, and security was kind of almost a byproduct of that. And so, yeah, if you can take some time to implement some of that rigor about like what you're saying, test cases, cleaning things up, like, yeah, you could improve your security quite a bit with way less effort than ever before, remediating old issues, patching and upgrading to newer versions of languages and frameworks. Like, the sky is the limit. Or, yeah, you can make another feature that won't be used by anyone. But, love to see what businesses choose to do. I think in the short term, we know the biggest fear everyone has is missing out on market share, missing out on where competitors are going. So they just got to build, and churn. Again, I haven't seen a huge benefit from all of this yet, but we'll see how things change.
Yeah, if anything, things feel a little bit more unstable, and maybe that's just anecdotal. But how do you feel about that? Like, I just feel like things are just kind of not. I don't know. Maybe it's just my perception, but I feel like things just break more often. Like things are slowing down, or like I have weird behavior, or and I like to just say, oh, there's AI, but I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if that's just because like everybody's laid everyone off and there's just not as many people, or if it's because of AI.
Yeah, there's one intern with 15 Claude Code instances maintaining everything these days. No, I mean, there's some irony to it, and again, like, not trying to crap on Anthropic. Like, they're amazing. Like, they've built some amazing things, and obviously super smart people, but like, they're shaping what engineering looks like these days. They're setting the trends with Claude Code and their models, but like, what are they at for uptime? And I know a lot of it is just they have such high usage they can't keep up with what people are demanding of them, but their uptime is terrible. GitHub's uptime has crashed post AI. And I think probably the most ironic thing is Mythos was a preview, so like closed to only like 100 companies, some open source people. And so wasn't supposed to be available to everyone. Then the news broke a day or two ago that some folks in Discord basically guessed the API endpoint for Mythos and were able to use it. So, like, it goes back to the same point, is somewhere along the line, someone said, all right, we're going to release this. We're just not going to tell people the API endpoint. Now, who could guess? Who would be able to guess an API endpoint? Only a genius.
Only Mythos could guess.
Only Mythos, yeah. And so it goes back to rigor. Like, if you don't have real controls on that API endpoint for how to access Mythos, some random folks on Discord who are bored are going to get access to it, and hopefully they're not threat actors. And they didn't point Mythos at Mythos to secure it. So it's like, it doesn't matter how good the model is if you're not implementing the things around it to actually secure this. We're going to end up in the exact same place.
Yeah, and like, you see, like, the thing that kind of irritates me about it is that you see like all the doom and gloom of all these things, that like it's going to be crazy how these models are going to change the world and all that, and then they make simple mistakes, or the people using them make simple mistakes like this, like leaking the CLI, or the endpoint getting guessed and not being behind some other sort of authentication, or like that kind of stuff is what bothers me, because you're right, it's like sometimes it's just the hygiene and the simple fundamentals that are the things standing between us and like doom, and it's not the 0 day. So I think, if anything, like our last conversation kind of proves the point, is that fundamentals are still fundamentals. It is the thing that is the common thread between all of this emerging technology. And those fundamentals go back to layered defense in depth, reducing the blast radius. All of that stuff matters, so that when it happens, you can react effectively. I think we've always said it's not a matter of if, but when, and it just moves the timeline up. Security professionals have been saying that like the likelihood of it happening is certainly a factor, but isn't necessarily the most important factor. And so if you talk to a security professional, that lever doesn't hold too much weight, in my opinion, right? It's like the impact and the reachability of these things. And so I just, I have trouble with this, like in the same way that you were talking about, with thinking that just the discovery of these things, or the fact that it has the ability to chain attacks together, or that it can create these exploits, is just the when part, right? We're just like, okay, well now the when is like immediate. So what do we do? And rather than freak out about it, it's like, okay, well, leverage this stuff to like strengthen the fundamentals so that we can just apply the things we've always applied, and that can be the defense. And be more prescriptive about that. Yeah. So you had mentioned something that I want to give you the opportunity to talk about, with the OpenClaw being the sort of thing that you're worried about, like the autonomous attacks, and the idea that really it's not just that these AI tools exist, but sort of the attack surface and the method of attack has changed. Do you want to talk a bit more about how, agents or agentic attacks or agentic defense or something like that, interacting with systems overall autonomously, how that affects the landscape, or how your customers have been reacting to that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we need like a visual, which isn't a good medium for podcasts with just our faces.
I could try to.
Yeah, grab a whiteboard.
We can play charades.
But yeah, I mean, like, I think the attack surface has just like exploded with AI. It's not only attackers being able to do more with AI. It's not only like the models being able to find more things, but it's very new ground. People are integrating these things very quickly into their applications, into their workflows, into their day-to-day. And again, like it's non-deterministic stuff. It's all prompts, it's all, injections, it's all things being fed into a model, and it makes a decision based on that. There's no way, I haven't seen a way to 100% control an output through non-deterministic means with models. And so we've just added this method everywhere, and it's getting introduced in more and more places. And that's just like the attack surface is just kind of exploding. That piece worries me for sure. I mean, even thinking about, like, we do code review as a consulting company, I think about, all right, if someone somewhere along the line has embedded some instruction in this code and we do AI-based code review with it, like, what if it is able to trick our laptops into doing something using Claude Code or some local tooling? Like, everything is threat surface now, because we are introducing a tool that is making decisions for us without our full input. And yeah, we have guardrails. We have like all the Claude Code stuff, like approve this thing, but people get more and more loose with it. And that piece, like, there's going to be fallout to that over time. Like right now, it's just like we're all enjoying the ride, and we're all just introducing the stuff all over the place. And eventually that's going to come home to roost.
Yeah. I still think that there's I think that the deterministic validation, though, is still important. You mentioned that everything are in these like go into a model and have a non-deterministic output, and I agree if you're using it that way. But are you saying that you're finding that people have like given up on deterministic testing?
I mean, we were chatting about this beforehand, but we've heard from some clients who they have developers pushing out so much code that, I was jokingly saying like shift left tests to shift even further left, because yeah. The old, like, all right, I write code, I commit it to GitHub, CI kicks off, runs some tests, runs like SemGrep, whatever it is, and then I get findings, I fix them, and then send it up again. Like we've heard pushback on that because it's too slow. It's not in their actual code generation. And so, like, ironically, we fought for so long to shift left into the pipeline, do DevSecOps. This podcast is about that. And that's now, in the AI world, been deemed too slow by some people. Now, I know you disagree. I don't necessarily agree. But I definitely think it's a shift you're going to see over time, where people are going to be going a lot faster from code generation locally to production with less gates, because they feel the need to just move so fast.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that it will slow you down, just like it would slow a developer down. But the perception of that speed decrease isn't going to, like, if you introduce a deterministic validation in that harness loop, it's not going to slow you down so much that the engineer will notice. So I disagree with the concept that you should tell an agent create secure code, and then tell it, okay, validate that you did that securely, and then that is your test. And so because we can do that, we're going to get rid of these, like the CI/CD pipeline and the deterministic testing that we have. I think that is wrong. Like, strong opinion, I don't think that that's the way to go because of what you're saying. The probability of it failing still exists. Whereas if you have the deterministic testing, you can do that right? You can do the probably figure out something that nuance that the deterministic testing won't pick up and still do the deterministic testing in line, and running that test will be almost imperceptible to you if you do it on every cycle of the harness. So I don't know why you wouldn't do that and why you would get rid of it because of this claim that it's going to not be fast enough, because you wouldn't even see it. Your agent is going to be using it.
Yeah.
So why not spend the time to create deterministic tests to basically enhance your test suite with more exhaustive testing that you can now run more often in line with your development, that also won't even take your token count, by the way, that you can then validate on the CI/CD pipeline. Like, that just, because now you would have a record of what your agents are doing, running it through your pipeline at an earlier stage in the process in a deterministic way that is validated and integrity checked without models, faster than your developers can think about coding. Like, why not do that? That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I of course don't disagree with you. I just kind of get the sense, and I could be completely wrong. Let's check back in 2 years and see if I'm completely wrong. But I see, and I kind of hear the same thing with GitHub, where like the current model is kind of eating itself for local development and local pushing to environments. Like, I think it's just going to become one big glob, for lack of a better word. But like, I just think it's going to be, we're going to move away from those gates, the GitHub Actions, the Jenkins.
Oh man.
And I think security, again, we're going to be like, no, guys, let's have some deterministic, let's introduce some tools. And they're like, shut up, security. It's too slow. I don't want to add that. I want to generate code. I want to get it into the environment as fast as possible. That's just my gut feeling based on some conversations I've had. And obviously it's not going to be 100% one way or the other. Enterprise, like, banks aren't going to be like, all right, screw CI/CD. Let's just YOLO it into production. But I do feel like culturally we're going to see that shift away from those systems into a local dev, agentic, maybe even, like, you look at the stuff, there's a weird, Devon, I think, is one of the big agentic code generations where you just feed it ideas, it creates things and pushes it through the whole pipeline. Like, we might be going into a place where we're completely hands off on code generation, and a traditional CI/CD security pipeline might make no sense.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're going with that. But I don't necessarily, but I think one of the things that I've had to change my perspective on here too is like what my relationship is to things that I'm developing. Because you are now, like, you and I have both lived in the consulting world for a while. We've done assessments. It's like we've gone into cold code bases a lot, and I think that it's no different than that. It's just that you have to wrestle with the fact that you created that BS. And so I think, but you still have to look at it that way. Okay, what is the landscape here? And how many times have you gone into an engagement and then you have the repeat annual test, and now you have to be like, okay, what was I doing the last time I worked on this? Oh, I remember this. I remember that. And then you have to sort of reorient yourself. And that's the relationship I think that we are going to have with some of these applications that are agentically driven, but you still, and you're going to have an agent team that's going to help you, work on this stuff. but it's not magic, right? It's going to have its constraints, its problems, and I think you need to understand what those are. And I think it allows us to, like, for me, the thing that's been really interesting is like the pros, right? We've been dogging on these things for so long, but like I think like documentation for my personal projects has gotten like 1,000 times better. Spec driven development, like some of the development harnesses where it's like, okay, I can make sure, this is why I was thinking, I don't understand why you would get rid of CI/CD, because for me, it's like, oh man, now as a solo developer for pet projects, I can do CI/CD in a faster way. I can do spec-driven development. I can run every feature that I create through a loop that is deterministic, and I can write tests for that pretty quickly, and I can validate those tests. And so now my relationship with my own code is the security engineer or the development manager, where I can look at it and be like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense, or I want to add this test. And as a result, I can actually see features that I've quote built on pet projects that have a feature statement, have a control statement, have threats that are associated with it, that run through tests that have been written that I can validate and see the tests are done. And now I have like a validation pipeline for code that I am working on. I could just as easily be like, go build this thing and it'll go off the rails. But you can choose to put yourself through rigor should exist. And I think that's awesome. Because if you can make yourself do the things that you're telling other people to do, then it will make the development process, I think, a bit better for you. And you scale that up safely, it'll look a lot better than the future that I think everybody is talking about, which is, oh, it's going to go off the rails and do all this stuff, and it's going to take over our brains or whatever it is. But I think that it also opens up this opportunity for us to implement the rigor that we've been talking about. My problem is that no one is taking the time to use these things to build that rigor. And that's what I think is that's the dangerous part, I think, for the future.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, I think we're having the same debate we've always had, which is like the numbers might have changed a little bit, but like the same philosophical debate is true. It's like you could write a bunch of tests previously and have complete coverage, but no one really ever did. And now it's even easier to write complete coverage and make sure you have that rigor. And yeah, I think more people are, but we'll see if it's really 100%. And I mean, it kind of goes back to philosophical of what do humans love doing? They love getting stuff done. We're generally lazy, and we're motivated by some kind of success criteria. And security doesn't always feel like success to a lot of people. Like a new feature, new users, money, like that feels like success. Having MFA, does that feel like success to people? Like, I don't know. I don't know if it always does. For us weirdos in the security space, yeah, that feels great. But for the normies, not as much. And so I think we still have the same philosophical debate of like, if someone decides to have more rigor's never been easier, but they still have to make that decision.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a lot of doom and gloom about all the things that are going to be found by this stuff, but there's also, there is a framing here around Mythos and the type of like AI-driven development that can be used in a positive way to close the gap between the things that machines and AI are doing and the human element that is preventing us from doing things that we've been putting on the shelf for 30 years. And I think using it to close that gap is probably the right first step, as opposed to using it to go and do new things. And I feel like we always come back to that in security. It's like, close the gaps, dude. Get some hygiene in there. Brush your teeth.
Yeah. Well, I think you're the optimist and I'm more the pessimist in this scenario. But I'll leave you with this quote from an incident response engagement we did, where we were reading out the recommendations for hardening the environment. And this is like towards the tail end of an investigation, figuring out what the blast radius was, getting things cleaned up. And we were talking through the recommendations, and one of the lead developers said, "We don't want to do too much security." And I'll just leave you with that.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah.
I hate to be the pessimist. You be the optimist in this one, but
Look, I mean, I think generally we agree. Um, and I think, last episode we talked a lot about how to treat AI like any other security thing. And I think we need to continue to do that cautiously, least privilege, distrust, and validation. And I don't like the fact that people are sort of moving through with this idea of we don't need to validate because it can do it well. It's like the trust but verify thing is going out the window. I never thought I'd see that. And I think that Mythos is actually proving why the fundamentals aren't boring, that they are literally the only thing that allows us to defend against something like Mythos finding like a $50 exploit on a bug that was 27 years old. Like, if you have the proper fundamentals, you will be able to defend yourself against that bug because you will insert time and space between your crown jewels and the attack. And so when those attacks start happening, the soft targets are going to go first, and then you will have time to defend against that. So practice your ABCs and your fundamentals.
Yep. I agree with you completely.
Cool.
It'll be a fun, bright new future for all of us.
Yeah, so let's use AI and let's think about how it goes wrong. And, we have concrete examples in this episode of how it went wrong. And I would just say, don't panic. Also, don't pretend everything is fine. But just get serious about the basics, man. And it looks like this report from Mythos around all the things it's done is going to come out in July, and we're going to finally see what everyone's been working on in the super secret basement of like thousands of people with, the billionaires and the developers. But until then, stay safe out there. I feel like we're in like a cyberpunk broadcast, new age future of like, watch out for the robots. Keep an eye on those drones.
Exactly.
Anything else you want to say before we wrap up? You talking anywhere? You doing meet and greets? You kissing babies?
I'll be out at Forward CloudSec in early June in Seattle, I believe. So looking forward to that. Cool. That is one of my favorite conferences. So hopefully meet some folks out there.
You just attending or you speaking?
No, just attending.
Cool. Well, for anybody going to Forward CloudSec in Seattle, go chat with Mike. I will not be there as far as I know, but if anybody is ever in New York City, then hit me up. Let's grab a coffee or grab lunch. So that's it for AI. We're still human. We have not turned this podcast over to automatically generated avatars with any scripting help. But who knows what the future will hold. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.